it's eerily shocking how accurate they really are. And I think you had even said on your workshop, if you don't like your top, then it probably is. And so the type six, the loyalist, it kind of made me tighten up and cringe a bit because it some of the I guess less appealing aspects of that type, it definitely rings true for me. But I also had the reformer, which I think I liked a little bit more. But um, yeah, I think for the loyalists, it talked about having kind of your guard up a little bit and being kind of anxiety prone, which can be true for me. But that's because we're worried about the potential pitfalls and the problems. And I don't know if that just comes from being an attorney or, this is more of a chicken or the egg type of thing. Is it the personality type or is it the profession? But I think I've kind of always probably been a little bit anxiety ridden and always kind of worried for the next shoe to drop. So preparing for the worst and kind of through this process, really realizing that you can't prepare for everything. You can do your best, but you can't live in that place of doubt and anxiety always.
Yes, so well said. Well, I'm actually glad that that came up for you, the one and the six, because that is one of the top kind of top results that people are torn between in the beginning, and they do have so many similarities because ones sometimes also identify with being very riddled with anxiety as well because they want everything to be perfect, and there are so many things that overlap. So I want to dig in just a little bit because so many people that may be listening, or they may have a coworker who is also on this one versus six struggle. And we're not going to turn this into a typing session. So you don't need to leave here with like, oh, I'm definitely this. But
Right.
just I think hearing other people's experience and what resonates can be helpful. So you had mentioned that some of the things with the six kind of made you cringe.
Yeah.
Where do you remember anything specific?
So it was really more dealing with the unknown and talking about that undercurrent of doubt and anxiety. I, I showed this to my husband about the types. I had him do the or look at the type descriptions, and he was like, "Oh, that's you, the type six, and even the type one, but mostly about the just worried and wanting to make sure everything is done well, um, and really just trying to juggle everything so that you don't fall into a trap and that can be stressful and overwhelming. And I think one of the great things about the Enneagram type descriptions is that it kind of lays out kind of these are your personality types, but here's how you can grow from it. And the realization that you can't, it's impossible to juggle everything. A ball's going to get dropped every now and then, and that's okay. And the world will not fall apart. So that is the thing that was really resonated with me.
And one of the things that we talk about as a strength with the six is sometimes they get a reputation for being kind of, I don't know, riddled with anxiety or have a lot of fear. But when you really start to kind of dig in, end up seeing them as one of the bravest types because they tend to be kind of the sole person in the room that's raising their hand, asking the hard questions when everybody else is excited about a new idea or, somebody's casting this big goal. The six might be the only person saying, wait a minute, does this make sense? Or like, how are we actually going to do this? Or do you see that piece show up for you in your current role?
100%. I try to, it's a balancing out, especially when you're being in leadership. You don't want to um, tap out someone's light per se, or come appear to be too harsh, but you also want to balance okay, so how do we actually achieve this? Let's set up objectives to make this actually happen. It's not that we can't do it, but we need to have some type of game plan in place if we want to actually make this happen. And then sometimes, it's you have to be the person that just says this probably just can't be done. And so it's definitely something that you have to just get used to being uncomfortable doing, but it's something that definitely comes very natural to me. So probably why I'm a type six, but you're always thinking and you're always trying to figure out, okay, where are the pitfalls and where are the potential problems? So it comes across sometimes, I'm sure it comes across as you're being a Debbie Downer, but in a lot of ways, you're just trying to cover all your bases.
Absolutely. Now, I'm gonna put you on the spot for just a second. If you don't have anything, that's okay. But when and I know you know this, but just as a reminder for listeners, when we talk about the six, we talk about how they're striving to feel secure. And so when they walk into a room, their natural tendency is just or a conversation or a situation, it is to kind of assess for risk and threats. What might
Yeah,
go wrong? Am I prepared? I need to be planning and I need to be contingency planning. And some people who identify with the six might say, oh, I hate, that's the annoying parts of me. But it really can be a lot of strength as well, especially in specific roles or really in any role when you're dialing it in a good way in your current position, or you can pull from a former position if it's easier. How do you see those kind of natural tendencies of what a six focus on benefit you? Is there a specific example that you can think of where that viewpoint has really come in handy?
absolutely. I would say, for instance, in a previous job, we were switching offices. It sounds it's pretty simple, but we were moving in new furniture and we had to get rid of the old furniture. And so one of my coworkers at another city, actually, that I had worked at previously, was like, "Oh, we got to get all this out. How are we going to do this?" Like, I was like, well, first let's just get a game plan first. They were like, well, these people said they wanted our old furniture. And I'm like, well, we haven't even got anything moved out yet or an ETA on when this is coming in. So I was like, well, first, let's just set a timeline. Let's get a deadline for when everything needs to be out as far as the furniture goes. And then from there, we can reassess and call people from different departments and determine who actually wants what and whether we can give it to them. And so it was kind of, I guess, the loyalist personality type, just assessing the threat, or I mean, it's not really a threat in this terminology, but in a smaller scale, an issue, and trying to make sense of it and try to add some guidance to it. The long story short of that situation was that it actually did all work out perfectly. We got everything moved out, and some of these offices, people had been in there for 20 years, so there was tons of stuff. But just kind of, I kind of sometimes call it like being a quiet leader. I don't want to be too forceful. I like to let people come to their own conclusions, kind of talk it out with someone, provide questioning, and then kind of seeing how it goes, and then kind of giving the nudges where you feel like you need to do so. I think type sixes are really good at that aspect, and I think from the type descriptions of the Enneagram, they said one of the hidden side. I think there was a section for hidden side, and one of the things about the type six is that they can, resemble that type one, and so. I think in that way, type sixes. I keep talking about type one, but it's all kind of merges into that one um, that one um, process or goal. Because at the end of the day, I think type ones and type six have kind of a very similar objective, but really type sixes are really just kind of always looking for calm. So
Mhm.
if they're in a place that's calm, that's great. We're already happy. We're good. But if we don't have calm, we're looking to create it. So then in that scenario, we had a fire. It was a small fire. It wasn't even a big fire. But sometimes, a lot of times, to other people in different types, some things that we may think are small are really big deals. And so having to add that type of guidance and care to those different types of people are important. And it also helped me to get that calm that I'm looking for. So
Well,
I
and
hope.
that's a great point. I'm sorry, that was a great point because what I have found in real life and from reading is that the type 6 tends to be really good at holding both. And what I mean by that is the processes and like what needs to be done. They just have this ability to kind of see all these data points and all these things of considerations, potential risks and threats, whatever that might look like. But then also they're thinking about the people and group cohesion, team, everybody getting along, everybody being considered and taken care of, is also incredibly important to the six. And I think the one too, and any type really can have both of those, but it is just a kind of a strength of the six to really be able to consider both.
Right. I think, like you said, was the perfect example was a meeting, and you have a meeting with someone who's, high official, whether that be a CEO or a city manager, where you can help people. I think giving even just as simple as a breakdown or an outline, a rundown of what topics are going to be discussed at the meeting. I know a few other court directors that I work with, always very thoughtful. Like, here's a rundown, and she'll lay out just bullet points of what we want to talk about, what we're hoping to get done from the meetings. And I think that was one of the things that also came from the Enneagram workshop, but she was also doing it before. But I think she really had a deeper appreciation. And I know I had a deeper appreciation for those little details like that really can just make a difference. I think on the other hand, when you have someone who's completely opposite, because in my actual prosecutor's division, we're a smaller office, but I think I'm the only one that's really more like that regimen, or who wants that type of personality. I know my co-attorney, she's more of she's a type 4, so she's the type 4 individualist, and then she had type 5 being her highest, the investigator. And so she's very, she wants to ask the questions. She wants to know the whys of why we're doing something. But she's also much more, I guess, calm. She's a very creative and an artistic type of person. So totally different viewpoint than, I guess, what a type 6 would be accustomed to. So it's been really a great experience for me to adjust myself and to make sure that, I'm taking time for those little details and making sure I'm explaining myself as to why, a certain course of action may be best, or her giving me a reason why we should be doing something else. So I think that's also been very helpful.
Yeah. And again, this kind of goes back to, people can get hung up on like, oh, well, I don't remember my teammate's number, or what if you're working with parents or clients, and you don't know their type. But it's like when you start to listen, you start to and I think it starts with yourself too, just realizing, oh, this is my lens and it's a single lens. Other people might have a different lens. You can even start to kind of be aware of that and tailor certain things or ask better questions or just ask questions. Um, Let me ask, because this is a question that comes up often from people. So we leave the workshop and it was like, oh, that was a really fun day. And then you kind of walk away and sometimes you might forget about it. And it's like, oh, that was a fun day, but I'll probably not think about it again. Um, has there been things that you kind of continue to think about? And I know that you are, I know you're here, but I guess what are those things that kind of you continue to think about, whether it was from the workshop or a conversation you had over lunch, or just anything, any way that you've kind of kept that alive after, we met a couple weeks ago?
So I asked for their reports, the descriptor types, just so I could better understand. We'd obviously had the workshop, but I wanted to keep it going. I know being so, by the book, wanting to get the job done, that sometimes you can kind of lose the interpersonal relationship aspect of it. And with two people that I work pretty closely with, our office is primarily just these three people that are in my office in our division. And so I really wanted to make sure that what they needed based on their types were being met. And so the co-attorney, like I said, she's very artsy. She likes craft. She's into martial arts. So to me, it's been kind of understanding, you know, this is her interest. I want to understand a little bit more about it. So I've taken that time to kind of understand, you know, what is she doing? She has a competition coming up in October. You know, asking those questions and knowing those types of things really can make a world of difference to the in the relationship within the office and just between two individuals, two people, you know, having an experience. Same thing with the senior legal assistant. She was a challenger type, and you see that is completely her. And then her second was the reformer. So we share that type of, you know, goal oriented, driven type of personality type where, you know, I ask her to do something, she can get it done and have options for you. So it's just really kind of being able to read those descriptors and kind of understand where people are coming from. And so it's been very helpful. And we've kind of continued that, try to have at least once a month, just a debrief of how things are going, not just with work, but also just their lives. And I just want to make sure that we're keeping this energy because we have a very good copacetic energy in the office and we all kind of get along pretty well. So um, I was about to say, I like that we have this calm, which of course I like the calm. So it's been nice to kind of cultivate that relationship.
Absolutely. And what I love about what you said there, is that I think sometimes we'll read, leadership books or, workplace professional development books, and they'll say, "Hey, you got to connect with your team. You got to do this." And while I think we all probably, because we're human beings, appreciate that little bit of connection, exactly what you said. Sometimes people want more of it, or like that really means a lot. But there's other people who are just like, "Hey, I know we're good. Let's just do the work talk, and if I need something, I'll let you know. But until then, like just let's just do the bullet points, and we can just talk about work. You don't have to ask me about my day, kind of thing."
Exactly. No, it's about meeting people where they're at. I think that's one of the big takeaways is meeting people where they're at.